Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most fundamental parts of being human, desire. We're going to break down where our ideas about love and relationships come from, why they so often leave us feeling kind of dissatisfied, and, what the path to real contentment might actually look like.
So this whole exploration really kicks off with this incredibly powerful question. What is the limit of our desire? I mean, is there a finish line? Is there a point where we finally feel truly, deeply satisfied? Or are we just kind of programmed to always be chasing the next thing? This one question is at the core of so much of our search for happiness.
So where do all these desires even come from? They don't just pop out of thin air, right? From a really young age, our minds are like these little fantasy factories, just soaking up everything we see and hear to build this grand, elaborate picture of what love is supposed to be. And honestly, most of the time, we don't even realize it's happening.
And for a lot of us these days, this fantasy building starts incredibly early. With the internet right in our pockets, we're hit with this endless fire hose of content about intimacy and relationships, and it starts shaping our expectations way, way before we have any real-life experience to check it against.
And then, of course, you've got the movies. Hollywood, Bollywood, doesn't matter. They are absolute masters at painting these powerful, perfect, and, let's be honest, completely unrealistic pictures of romance and passion. They sell us a story, a really good one.
And this quote right here, it just nails the problem, doesn't it? We absorb these huge cinematic stories, the dramatic confessions in the rain, the perfect chemistry, the happily ever afters, and we start thinking that's the benchmark. But the simple hard truth is, real life almost never follows a script.
Okay, so what happens when this perfect fantasy we'd built up in our heads smacks right into the messy, complicated reality of an actual long-term relationship? Well, this is where things start to get really interesting. And when you see it laid out like this, the contrast is just, wow. The fantasy promises nonstop novelty, this passion that never, ever fades. But the reality? It's often about finding comfort in the routine and accepting that the initial craze, that wildfire at the beginning, naturally settles down into a different, more sustainable kind of warmth.
So how long does that initial craze, or junoon as the source calls it, usually last? Well, get this. Often, it's just a few months. And if you're still expecting the movie to keep playing after that phase ends, it can feel like something is seriously wrong. But it's not. It's just the natural way relationships evolve.
So when our reality doesn't live up to the fantasy we've been sold, we do something that is so human but also so incredibly destructive. We start looking over our shoulder. We fall right into the comparison trap, which, honestly, might be the single biggest thief of joy there is.
Come on, does any of this sound familiar? We look at a friend's partner and think, wow, they're more attractive. We see that one perfectly curated photo online and assume another couple is just so much happier or having way more fun. This constant comparing just fuels this frantic chase for some imaginary pleasure we're convinced everyone else has but us.
Which brings us to a really crucial question. If chasing the fantasy doesn't work and comparing ourselves just makes us miserable, then what exactly is this desire we're dealing with? What is its true nature?
Okay, here's a simple but really profound analogy that can totally reframe how we look at all of this. What if we stop treating desire like some epic story we need to finish and start seeing it as something way more basic, something like hunger?
Just think about it for a second. You eat a great meal. You feel full, you feel satisfied, but you know without any stress or anxiety that you're going to be hungry again in a few hours. Physical desire works the same way. It's a natural, recurring cycle. It's not a quest with some final prize called satisfied forever. Just getting that changes everything. It means desire isn't a problem to be solved, it's just a rhythm to be understood.
At its very core, it's what the source beautifully calls jism ki zarurat, which just means a need of the body. Simple as that. Once you strip away all the Hollywood drama and the social media pressure, that's what's left, a biological reality, not some kind of romantic failure.
And here it is. This is the insight that's a real game changer. The problem is never the hunger itself. That's totally normal. The unhappiness, the arguments, the frustration, it all comes from this one mismatched expectation. Expecting your partner to have the exact same appetite, the same cravings at the exact same time as you. But just like with food, everyone's needs are different. Accepting that simple fact can lift so much unnecessary pressure.
So if we stop chasing an impossible fantasy and we start understanding the real nature of desire, how do we actually find lasting contentment in our relationships? Let's break down the path forward.
All right, the path forward is pretty straightforward, but it definitely takes some conscious effort. First, you gotta acknowledge the fantasy for what it is. Great entertainment, but a terrible blueprint for life. Next, you have to make a real decision to just get off that comparison treadmill. Then, it's about accepting your own nature without judging it. And the final step, maybe the most important, is to turn your focus back to what's real and find joy in the actual person right in front of you.
So what this all really boils down to is a pretty powerful realization. Real happiness, it isn't found at the finish line of some infinite chase for more. It's found right here, right now, and accepting what is real, what is human, and what is truly yours.
And that leaves us with one final personal question to think about. We all have our own little Hollywood movies playing in our heads. So take a second and ask yourself, what fantasy are you still chasing? Thanks for watching.